Have you ever wondered why qualified tax planning prospects will go out of their way to book a meeting with you, and then when it comes time to actually show up, they completely ghost you? My name is Daniel Schulte, and I help tax planners sign more deals like Ed Lloyd, who was able to get 37 appointments with businesses making over $1 million a year, Daniel Sleep, who was able to close 4 high-ticket tax planning deals with 7- and 8-figure businesses in a span of just 30 days, and Daniel Guarin, who closed over $85,000 worth of tax plans in a 30-day period. And in this video, I'm going to reveal the 4-step pre-call process that any tax planner can use to get qualified prospects showing up to their calls, but more importantly, excited to buy. So the first step is immediately confirming the call after somebody books. Now, a lot of people make this mistake where they just rely on the automated texts, automated emails, and while that's great, we're seeing a huge shift with a pendulum right now where everyone's using automation, and because of how caught on the prospect and the market is, they can smell automation from a mile away. So what I recommend people do is the first thing when you're confirming that call immediately, just pick up the phone and call that person within 15 minutes. The human to human touch is a huge thing that can help increase that show rate. The second thing is that you want to make sure that time frame is important. Notice I mentioned 15 minutes. If you're able to call that person within 15 minutes, it's still on the top of their mind, and you show that you guys are on top of your stuff because you're calling them within that period. You're not waiting 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, but you're picking up the phone and calling them within 15 minutes of them actually booking that appointment. Now, the nice thing is that once you're on the call with them, you can actually use that time to build rapport and excitement for the call. See, a lot of people forget that there's really 2 sales that you need to make. Yes, once somebody's on the call, your goal is to close them as a client, but you actually have to sell them on showing up to the call in the first place. So if you're able to position it as something they're going to get value from, as opposed to just another pitch or another sales call, then people are getting more excited to hop up and actually show up to that call. So a line that I love to give my clients that they can use is, hey, on average, we save our clients, or we find our clients, $57,324 in tax savings, and that's exactly what we're going to help uncover on this call. So just to be sure, you're not going to be able, or you're not going to miss this or anything, you don't have any staff meetings, we'll be able to hop on here so we can find how much money you're missing out on, right? And so just by using that simple tweak, you now position it as a value-based call as opposed to a sales-based call. And so by doing these things and by creating that human connection early on, that's a huge thing that will dramatically increase your show rates. The second thing that I recommend is having pre-call content that they can consume before actually hopping on the call with you. See, I just mentioned how we need to position it as value to the prospect. So another thing that you can think about is that between the time somebody actually books that call and shows up with you, 99% of the time, that prospect is not getting any type of information. But as soon as that person books, they're going out of their way to research who you are, research your company, assuming they're not a referral, right? And they want to see that you are the expert that can help them. So what I typically recommend is having videos that answer frequently asked questions, that provide value and showcase that you're the expert in your field, kind of similar to what I'm doing here on YouTube, right? And by doing so and showing the prospect that you understand their problems better than they do theirself, they're going to be excited to actually hop onto that call with you. But more importantly is that you can take some of that selling process off of you or your sales team and you can put it onto the content. So when somebody shows up, they are basically already pre-sold because they've spent the time learning about you, learning your strategies, getting to know, like, and trust you. And so there's a few pieces of content that I highly recommend that you do. The first one is your unique approach to tax planning. See, there's a ton of people out there and they all offer tax planning. So what makes you unique? What makes you different? Is it your process? Is it the different strategies that you use? The second thing is why most businesses overpay in taxes. So if you can create a video sharing, hey, here's why you're probably overpaying on taxes, whether it's because they file themselves or their accountant just doesn't know tax planning, then you're able to position that as well. The other one is client case studies, where you actually go and you share the strategies that you used to help clients get results. One of the biggest objections that I personally see my clients run into is, well, what can you do for me? Share a strategy. And if you share all of this information before somebody comes on the call with you, you'll be able to have a ton of help overcoming that objection, simply because you were able to go in and say, hey, this may not work for you, but here's a client that we help, and here's all the strategies that we help them implement. And then the last thing is what to expect on the actual call. Again, we want to position this as a value add to the prospect. So if you can walk through what they can expect on the actual call, it'll help them come in pre-framed, ready to go, and understanding what's going to happen on that call, as opposed to them taking over and taking control. Step 3, which I mentioned in the last step, but is one of the crucial pieces to making this work. People want to know that you've helped people just like them. So if you can create undeniable and irrefutable proof, you will be way more farther along than somebody who has none whatsoever. What I recommend my clients do is something called a client hero interview, where they bring a current client on, someone they've successfully helped, and they interview what that person was doing before, how they helped them, and how it's impacting them now. Most of the time, because you're in that money market, you'll be able to show them the direct correlation of here's what you were paying before and here's what he was paying after, assuming the client is open to sharing that. Some will, some won't. Don't think about it too much. Don't worry about it too much if they don't decide to share those numbers with you. But it's going to overcome that fear in the back of their head of, is it going to work for me, right? So if you're able to show that proof by interviewing your clients that you currently have, it's going to overcome that barrier for proof and literally just show them, hey, here's exactly somebody just like you who we helped. Here was the before, here was the after. And so on that sales scale, instead of somebody coming in completely cold, we're slowly inching them down the line to where they're as hot as a referral. Okay, because if you think about it, one of the reasons referrals are so great is because they come in warm, ready to go, but more importantly is that they've already got the trust of the person who has referred them to you. So by manufacturing that trust, by showing the proof, by showing those client hero interviews, if somebody comes in through a cold ad, you're able to transfer some of that trust from other clients that you've helped to that prospect. And so that's what allows them to slowly move, or fastly, depending on how much content you have, move down the sales scale to be pre-positioned to buy before they ever hop on that call. And the last thing, of course, is the reminders, making sure that you have those automated texts and emails in place. Like I said in the very first step, everybody's using them, but if you're not, if you're not using them, you still are taking a burden on yourself to have to remind these people. But also, right, it's just good to have reminders. People are busy, especially when they're successful business owners. They are busy, so they need reminders, not over the top, right? But hey, your call is coming up, okay? Typically what I like to do is I like to send one right when they book. I like to send one 24 hours before, 2 hours, and then at the time of the actual meeting, or typically like 5 minutes before. So now that your prospects have hopped on the call, the next step is knowing what to say to those prospects once they're on the call with you. So make sure to check out this next video where I show you a sales hack on how to close more affluent tax planning clients without needing to be better at sales.